Welcome in for another edition of Just the Truth. Boy, am I glad to have you join me today as I broadcast from the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. The Biden administration is reportedly taking its goal of a temporary ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war to the UN Security Council, possibly as early as today. Michigan is asking residents to house illegals in their homes and help resettle them into society as the crisis at our southern border continues to grow. And from the New York Post, headlines: inside Mayor Adams' migrant debit card boondoggle, no bid bank gets $50 million, border crossers up to $10,000 each. This, of course, in reference to the much publicized debit card program that New York City is starting. And Kamala Harris to the rescue. Vice President Kamala Harris is said to be gathering information on President Joe Biden's reelection campaign. She wants some job security, I suppose, in an effort to help turn things around as the sitting president is trailing President Donald Trump in hypothetical matchups. More than 24 sources telling CNN the vice president evidently is in a bit of a panic mode.
I told you we'd be back.
And ye shall know the truth, and the truth shall make you free.
It's Joey Hudson.
I wanted to name it the Joey Hudson bill, but, they don't allow you to put names on bills. But I wanted to call it the Joey Hudson bill because I know that one's been near and dear to you for a number of years.
That's how it's done. Let your voice be heard.
And the truth shall set you free.
Here's Joey Hudson.
You're welcome to join the conversation today. Send me a quick text message on the Firmin Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Send me your text. You can leave a quick voice message. Emails, always welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. So the Biden administration is reportedly taking its goal of a temporary ceasefire in the Israel-Hamas war to the UN Security Council. We're told it could possibly happen today. The administration is said to propose a draft UN Security Council resolution, which in part would call for a temporary ceasefire and call on Israel not to go into Rafah in the Gaza Strip. According to Reuters, the U.S. text states in part that it, quote, determines that under current circumstances, a major ground offensive into Rafah would result in further harm to civilians and their further displacement, including potentially into neighboring countries. Richard Goldberg, a former NSC official during the Trump administration, telling Fox News Digital the United States should be vetoing pro-Hamas resolutions, not proposing them. He said by putting forward a resolution calling for a ceasefire and opposing Israeli military action in Rafah, the White House is effectively pushing for Hamas to survive to massacre another day. This is a complete betrayal of U.S. interest and values, he said. A senior administration official speaking to Reuters on condition of anonymity said, "We don't believe a rush to a vote is necessary or constructive and intend on allowing time for negotiations." The Jewish state has opposed President Biden's attempts to torpedo its slated seizure of Rafah, where one of the last large groups of Hamas terrorists and hostages, including Americans, we're told, are believed to be located. Last week, President Biden made clear his feelings about Israel going into Rafah, telling reporters, "I'm hoping that the Israelis will not make a massive land invasion." Biden has also said that Israel's response is, quote, over the top, while Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has also made it clear that nothing but complete victory of Hamas is acceptable.
I'm of the view, as you know, that the conduct of the response in the Gaza Strip has been over the top.
Peace and security require total victory over Hamas. We cannot accept anything else.
During the same press conference, Joe Biden said that he had engaged with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu on the situation, that he made the case in calling for a temporary ceasefire so that hostage negotiation can continue. Benny Gantz, an Israeli security cabinet member and leader of the opposition party, said that Ramadan starts on March the 11th and said the world must know and Hamas leaders must know if our hostages are not home by Ramadan, the fighting will continue and expand to Rafah. This past weekend, Israeli Defense Minister Yoav Gallant said that the decision was one Israel would make on its own. Commentators have noted that the hostage release talks in Cairo are pretty much stagnant. Israeli forces have managed to free a couple of hostages, but not a lot going on in the negotiation part. Gallant fired back at the international voices opposed to an invasion into Rafah, saying, "There's no one here to come to their aid, no Iranians, no international aid." He continued, "There were 24 regional battalions in Gaza. We have dismantled 18 of them. Now Rafah is the next Hamas center of gravity," he said. A U.S. State Department spokesperson told Fox News Digital, "We have also been clear that a full-scale Israel military operation in Rafah should not proceed until there is a credible and executable plan for ensuring the safety of and support for the more than 1 million people sheltering there." According to the State Department spokesperson, the best way to achieve an enduring end to the crisis in Gaza that provides lasting peace and security for Israelis and Palestinians alike is our strong commitment to the creation of a Palestinian state. As such, the United States continues to support the two-state solution and to oppose policies that endanger its viability or contradict our mutual interests and values. Yigal Karman, who was a colonel in the Israeli Military Intelligence Service, said the Rafah crossing was the major area through which the worst smuggling operation went on for years when it was in the hands of the Egyptian government. If this is not stopped, there will be no end to the war and no end to war, particularly heavy missiles on Tel Aviv and its surroundings. The seizure of Rafah will limit the war significantly, he said. He said if the U.S. administration has a miraculous way to convince Egypt to fulfill its commitment, then there would be no need for an operation. Unfortunately, the U.S., he says, does not pressure Egypt, even though it has all the capabilities to do that. But what remains is to pressure Israel, but this will not work because what is at stake is missiles on Tel Aviv, and Netanyahu cannot afford to end the war with a continued flow of missiles on Tel Aviv. Karman, the founder and president of the Middle East Media Research Institute, back late last summer predicted an Iran-backed Hamas terrorist attack on Israel. That, of course, became reality October the 7th. When asked why Biden is imposing pressure on Israel, Goldberg, a senior advisor at the Foundation for Defense of Democracy, said there are lines being pushed that it's all about Dearborn or that it's all about securing Saudi-Israel peace. But the polling out of Michigan and the strategic priorities in Riyadh don't back up these arguments. It looks more like left-wing ideologues using the pretext of political necessity and the potential of a Saudi-Israel normalization deal to jam through all the bad ideas that never made it into policy for years. Fox News Digital reported that Joe Biden is putting Israel in a vice in order to win over large American Muslims in Dearborn, Michigan, which, of course, is a critical swing state in the 2024 reelection campaign. Surely not even Joe Biden is stepping this low to risk the safety and the continued safety of the people of Israel so that he can placate and pick up votes in Dearborn, Michigan, where we know there's a very large Muslim population. This past weekend, Netanyahu told the Conference of Presidents of major American Jewish organizations, quote, the release of hostages can be achieved through strong military action and tough negotiations, very tough negotiations, he added. That tough position has to involve the exertion of pressure. And the exertion of pressure is not merely on Hamas itself, but on those who can exert pressure on Hamas, beginning with Qatar. Netanyahu said Qatar can press Hamas as no one else can. They host Hamas leaders. Hamas is dependent on them financially. I urge you to press Qatar, to press Hamas, because we want our hostages released. I hope that we can achieve a deal soon to release more of our hostages, but deal or no deal, we have to finish the job to get total victory. I don't think Joe Biden is going to bully Netanyahu into surrendering what he believes to be a long-term peace for Israel. Your comments? They're welcome on the Firmin Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY, 864-477-5639. Call, leave a quick voice message. Emails are welcome, joey@joeyhudson.com. Speaking of Michigan, new report out of Michigan saying that they're asking residents to help house illegals in their homes and help resettle them into society as the crisis at our southern border continues. Details on this in just a moment, and you're going to want to hear this. Let me talk with you a minute about losing weight. Do you need to lose 10, 20, 30 pounds or more? Do you want to get healthy? Is 2024 the year that you're going to finally lose that excess weight, that visceral fat that has developed in your midsection that is so harmful, so dangerous to your health? If that's the case, write this phone number down, 864-252-4925. This is my friends at PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition. Boy, am I so thankful that over 3 years ago now, I was introduced to Dr. Ashley Lucas and her team at PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition. I lost 30 pounds within just a few months. Over 3 years later, I've been able to maintain that because PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition is not your typical diet. It's not even really a diet. Certainly not one of those fad diets where you lose the weight real quick and then you're on your own. PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition, they teach you about the science of nutrition, what to eat, when to eat, and how to eat. And they give you skills that you'll take with you for the rest of your life. And if you stick to them, you can maintain that weight loss. 864-252-4925. Call today. Set up your appointment. See if this program is right for you. I promise you, you won't regret making that phone call. Find them online as well at myphdweightloss.com. PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition, the official partner of the Clemson Tigers. Here's the story out of Michigan. The State Department of Labor and Economic Development said that volunteers who wish to participate must commit for at least 90 days as part of the Refugee Support Program. Poppy Hernandez, Global Michigan Director and Michigan's Chief Equity and Inclusion Officer, said programs like the Welcome Corps advance the office of Global Michigan's mission to make Michigan the home for opportunity for our immigrant, refugee, and ethnic communities. Poppy went on to say expanded refugee resettlement pathways empower more Michiganders. Is that how you say that? Michiganders, I guess. People of Michigan to support our state's growing refugee population and build a more welcoming and inclusive Michigan for all. Now, how long is it going to be before we hear Michigan complaining that they have too many illegals coming? Just like we've heard Chicago and New York. And speaking of New York, boy, we have a story from the New York Post for you. You're not going to believe in just a moment. Sponsors, according to the program, would be expected to support newly arrived refugees, illegals, by greeting them at the airport, securing and preparing initial housing, enrolling children in school, and helping adults find employment. The illegals will come from Cuba, Haiti, Nicaragua, Venezuela possibly, all points of origin where many have been hoping to apply for asylum at the U.S.-Mexico border. The request comes as multiple cities are struggling with how to house and provide services to newly arrived illegals from the southern border, like Chicago, like New York. They've dealt with issues related to illegals committing crimes, as well as pushback from residents who have voiced anger and concern over the influx. Illegal shelters in these cities have largely been full, forcing officials to come up with ways to safely house all of these people who are in our country uninvited. Last year, Massachusetts officials, you may recall this, asked residents to open their doors as illegal shelters or shelters for that had been set up for the illegals were full at the time. Lieutenant Governor Kim Driscoll said, most importantly, if you have an extra room or suite in your home, please consider hosting a family. Housing and shelter is our most pressing need, and become a sponsor family, she said. Wow. Again, how much time do you give it before Michigan starts whining and complaining like New York, Chicago, some of these other large cities who have advertised that they are welcoming the illegals, that they're sanctuary cities? Speaking of New York, from the New York Post, headline, inside Mayor Adams' migrant debit card boondoggle, no bid bank gets $50 million, border crossers could potentially receive up to $10,000 each. You're going to want to hear this, and you're going to think that I'm exaggerating this. You're going to have to trust me on it, though. Details here in just a moment. First, let me talk with you about Firmin Ford. My friends in Lawrence, if you're looking for a new vehicle, if you would like a great pre-owned vehicle that you can trust, that's been checked out, Firmin Ford is your place. I love Firmin Ford because they're locally owned. Firmin, the name. Their name is on the sign because their name is on the line. That's how Jim Firmin and Matthew Firmin take this. And I promise you, you can call, you can email, you can stop by. They'd love for you to stop by, and you'll have access always to a member of the Firmin family. They'll help you navigate some of the great deals they have on their inventory of vehicles. And what's even better, when you drive your new vehicle off the lot, you know that your money is staying right here in the community, right here in the upstate, to support the community as well. For an all-around better buying experience, if you need service, they can service your vehicle too, whether you purchase it at Firmin Ford or not, whether it's even a Ford. They service all makes and models. Firmin Ford. Find them online at firminford.com, firminford.com. Headlines from New York Post. Here's the story. Lead sentence. It takes money to make money, as the old saying goes, and apparently it also takes money, as much as $53 million, to give money away. Now, you've been hearing about this. We've talked about this a few times, about the debit cards that New York has promised to give to the illegals. Now, that's one thing. But when you dig a little deeper, it's quite amazing. And this is government at its worst. Earlier this month, and I saw the article, the New York Post broke the story that New York City Mayor Eric Adams is giving out prepaid cash cards to illegals. We all knew that. We heard about it, read about it. The Post writes, unusually for the mayor, Adams didn't publicize this story himself, and his administration has for nearly a month failed to correct several public misperceptions about it. One misperception is that the program allows the city to give out just $50 million to the illegals. No wonder the mayor has been reticent, they write. This debit card program, if you read the actual contract, has the potential to become an open-ended, multi-billion-dollar Bermuda Triangle of disappearing, untraceable cash used for any purpose. It will give illegals up to $10,000 each in taxpayer money with no ID check, no restrictions, no fraud control. If I were a resident of New York City right now, I would be standing at the mayor's door demanding an explanation of this. When the New York Post exposed the mayor's debit card program just a few weeks ago, the mayor's office spun it as a money-saving program, saying it was solving a problem. Migrants staying in hotels, they don't eat all their food, we're told. DocGo, which is the city's no-bid emergency contractor to provide illegals with 3 meals a day, we're told throws away 5,000 meals every day, wasting just over $7 million if you annualize it. Some food is inedible, expired or rotten. Other food doesn't meet migrants' dietary needs, we're told. Providing mass-scale meals competently and with options for specific needs, kosher, vegan, non-gluten, like that, isn't that hard. I mean, you look at school systems, they do it all around the country. Airlines do it. Hospitals do it. Even jails do it. The Post says it wouldn't be that difficult for the city to solve this problem. On-site city auditors could refuse to pay for meals that are objectively inedible, with visible mold, for example, or with expired labeling. Instead of assuring that its existing no-bid emergency contractor fulfills its duty to provide edible food, however, the Post writes, the Adams administration has solved its problem by retaining a new no-bid emergency contractor to provide a service with far more scope for waste, fraud, and abuse than stale sandwiches, giving out potentially billions of dollars of hard cash with few questions asked. This is going to be one of government's biggest boondoggles in history. You watch. And the poor people of New York City are going to be funding this. New York Post continues, which vendors did the city's housing preservation and development consider for this contract as qualified to provide this complex financial service? This is a tongue-in-cheek question from the Post. New York City is home to hundreds of top-tier financial services and public benefits providers, they say. A dream of a competitive bidding pool to ensure that the city gets a good price as well as strong protections against fraud and abuse. But HPD considered only one. Newark, New Jersey-based Mobility Capital Finance, which also has an office in Harlem. They're known as MoCalFi. They were founded by Woel Coxum, a former managing director at J.P. Morgan Chase, who said that the death of Michael Brown in Ferguson, Missouri in 2014 inspired him to serve the underbanked and narrow the racial wealth gap. So how did HPD choose Mobility Capital? New York Post says the contract makes it quite clear. MoCalFi was referred to HPD by City Hall. Someone in Eric Adams' office, or maybe even the mayor himself, suggested them. Again, it's a no-bid contract, so nobody else was asked. Nobody else was involved. So what kind of experience did MoCalFi bring to this complex endeavor, they ask? None. As HPD helpfully notes on a listing of prior related emergency large contracts, MoCalFi is a new provider of emergency services for HPD. A new provider. Did you get that? MoCalFi only city experience is, HPD notes, is small-scale support of the city's participatory budget program. The company's broader nationwide experience is a platform for prepaid third-party debit cards and bank accounts marketed to minorities. So where did City Hall find this company? Again, if I'm living in New York City, which thankfully I don't, I'm pretty upset right now. The only clue of knowing where they found this company is from an off-the-cuff comment that Mayor Adams made at a reception earlier this month, calling the company a minority business that, quote, we met on the campaign trail. Bingo. Politics. Met them on the campaign trail. He went on to say, little did we know that God is going to say there's going to be a crisis. You're going to have to meet them, and it's going to cost us money to put investment in our community. A year ago, the Adams administration was already eager to find something for MoCalFi to do. Last year, the director of the Mayor's Fund Advanced New York City, which the New York Post describes as a slush fund powered by anonymous private donors, raised at one of the fund's board meetings the concept of an upcoming partnership with the mayor's office and MoCalFi on a universal basic income project, giving poor New Yorkers, not migrants, not illegals, cash. And there are a lot of poor New Yorkers who could use this money that illegals are about to receive. Coxum seems to have become part of the mayor's inner circle, and even provided a quote to an official City Hall press release praising Adams' founding of a new Office of Engagement. So how much New York City cash will this company, McAfee, give out? Adams has been content to allow a public misperception. He doesn't want any more information out there than necessary. With 500 illegal families at the Roosevelt Hotel receiving debit cards of about $1,000 a month, because it was initially said that this program was a trial program that would start at the Roosevelt Hotel. This is one of the hotels that the city has taken over. It would allow them supposedly to buy necessities at grocery, foods, and convenience stores. The mayor said last week in response to a question, we're doing this on a pilot project with 500 people. New York Post writes, well, it's easy to conclude, and the mayor has not disabused anyone of this thought process, that's how this will all cost $53 million or thereabouts. Nope. They write $1,000 a month for 500 families for a year. A good time frame for a pilot would cost about $6 million. It's easy math. The city could have written and signed a contract for that amount only. The Post writes, a contract that allowed for a well-defined pilot program with such well-defined costs and a way to judge its results. That's not the contract the city signed, though. Most importantly, the $53 million headline figure is not the money. Now get this, listen carefully. The $53 million that the New York Post put in their headlines is not the money that the illegals will receive during this pilot program. That's the number that this vendor, this no-compete vendor, McAfee, will potentially receive as its fee for services. So Eric Adams met the CEO of this company on the campaign trail, and suddenly they have a contract. They'll probably, if you look at the numbers here, they potentially could receive far more money for their services, their fee for services, than will be distributed to the illegals. The Post writes, as the contract document clearly and explicitly states, over the one-year term, in exchange for McAfee's performance of the services, the city shall pay to the contractor a total amount not to exceed $53 million in accordance with the scope of services and fees. The scope of services does not include the money that the illegals will actually receive on their debit card. The city will fund the cards. They'll put the money on them separately. In other words, for a maximum of $53 million, this financial company will issue blank MasterCards in bulk, and that's it. And for the, quote, service, this financial company not only makes money from each card distributed, but gets a 3% fee on the first $50 million the city puts on the cards. That's $1.5 million. I'll supply them cards for that. The fee drops, but only slightly after the first $50 million. I mean, this boondoggle goes on and on. Now, you may say, well, hey, that's New York City. Doesn't affect me here in the Carolinas or in Atlanta or Charlotte or Pennsylvania or wherever you're listening. Bob in Little Rock doesn't affect me. But these are the kind of types of programs. Somebody's going to have to pay this. New York City's already whining that they can't afford it. So guess who ultimately will end up paying this? The Biden administration, in exchange for votes from Eric Adams, will have some type of emergency bailout for the city of New York. Our federal tax dollars, watch me now, I'm predicting it. What's the day? February 20th, 2024. I'm predicting New York City will end up getting some money from the Biden administration before the November elections of this year. I mean, they're going to get up to $53 million to distribute maybe $6 million? Is my math right here? The Post goes on to say fraud controls. What fraud controls? They write, to sum it up so far, the Adams administration, with no oversight, no consultation with the city council, no public discussion, has given itself the flexibility to launch a massive parallel benefits program alongside not replacing traditional welfare cash assistance for New York's legally in the country long-term federal food stamps benefits. They're poor people in New York who are American citizens who could benefit from this. The Post writes, but those traditional programs at least come with reasonable, if not fail-safe, fraud protections. People must prove eligibility for the programs, including providing identification. They point out that SNAP food stamp cards are not debit cards. They're programmed only to pay for specific food items. And if you know of anyone, if you know of an elderly person who has these types of benefits, you'll know that they specifically have to buy food with them. The Post writes, Adams' potential multi-billion-dollar debit card program, by contrast, has no such built-in protections. As the contract with MoCaFi clearly notes, cardholders will not be subject to ID verification, and the city shall be responsible for the accurate delivery of cards to, quote, consumers. And after delivery of the cards to the city shall be responsible for the security of the cards until delivered to the cardholders. Under the contract, upon request by the city, MoCaFi will simply dump off hundreds or more of blank debit cards with no one's name on them, with unknown amounts of money to be loaded on them, up to $10,000 per card at any time by the city. The city may even issue debit cards to children. If, quote, cards are to be distributed to any person under the age of 18, the city shall confirm that the minor cardholder's parent or guardian has consented to the minor's acceptance and use of the card. I can see parents objecting to their child getting a card with $500 on it. Can you? Not going to happen. So the Post says city employees and shelter contract workers are going to be in charge of handing out cards to be loaded and regularly refilled with untraceable cash to people who have no forms of identity acceptable to the American financial services system under a program with no eligibility or verification policy. They ask the question, what could possibly go wrong? To list one potential problem among many, gang members will know that people staying in adjacent rooms, including vulnerable women and minor children, are in possession of these debit cards. And potential card recipients will quickly learn who is in the position to make the decision of whether they can get a card or not. Nor can the city ensure that recipients don't spend the money on unauthorized products or simply withdraw the money in cash. Use it for whatever they want, buy drugs or anything on the street. They write, these are not SNAP cards, they're MasterCards. Cardholders can pay for any goods or services at any business merchant that accepts MasterCard. Yes, the city can ask MoCaFi to activate or deactivate certain merchant or spending codes, but these restrictions are not built into the contract. They are at the city's changing discretion. The city can even enable cardholder consumers to withdraw cash from cards at domestic and international ATMs. ATM withdrawals amounts per day can be restricted as required by the city. Why bother to lay out a fee structure for international ATM withdrawals if the city knows it will never allow such withdrawals? Under what possible circumstance would the city need this flexibility built into a year-long pilot? It's a good question. They're doing it, though, so that this financial institution can, again, collect their service fees. They wrap things up by saying, fiction from fine print. As the mayor told radio host Gary Bird earlier this month, quote, it's important for us to speak directly to you to separate the facts from fiction. Fact from fiction is the migrant cards that we gave out to migrants to purchase food. Just some quick bullets that you need to know about these cards, he said. They're not American Express gold cards, folks. This is a pilot project we're doing with 500 migrants. Post says the fiction is what the mayor says. The fact is the contracts that the city signed. The city's given itself the full contractual and technical authority under a supposed, quote, emergency to disburse billions of dollars in cash to unidentified people who otherwise are not eligible to access the American financial system and untraceable global cash. Again, why do we care? Because ultimately we'll end up paying for it one way or the other. City of New York's already claiming they're about to go bankrupt. On the Firmin Ford text line, lot of notes. Thank you for those. Susan from Hartwell says, I doubt that GoFundMe, being based in California and run by extreme leftists, can be trusted to disburse the funds they received to Truckers for Trump. This is in reference to what we talked about yesterday. If you missed it, go back and listen to yesterday's episode where the truckers are saying that they may not go into New York City. New York City seems to be the center of news quite often, don't they? Go back to episode 84 of Just the Truth if you missed this. Susan says, remember when people donated on behalf of the Canadian truckers protesting Trudeau's COVID mandate 2 years ago? And GoFundMe chose to disperse the funds to one of their pet leftist groups instead? The donors demanded and received refunds. Kathy in Spartanburg says, hey, Joey, love your podcast. Thank you, Kathy. Appreciate that. I listen every morning. You share info that I do not hear anywhere else. Thank you. You're quite welcome. I appreciate you listening, Kathy. She says, also trying to be approved for the Trump town hall. Would love to hear why it was moved from Spartanburg to Greenville. Have a blessed week. Now, I kind of gave you a bit of a challenge yesterday. I asked you to text me or email me. Many of you did on why the Trump rally, or actually I should say town hall. It's a Fox News town hall hosted by Laura Ingraham, as announced last week. And Kathy, I'm sorry to tell you, but the tickets were allocated very quickly. This is not your typical Trump rally. It's not a rally where they're going to allow just people to cram into whatever space they can have. When it was first announced, and then very quickly, within 24 hours, they made the announcement that it was moving from Spartanburg Auditorium to the Greenville Convention Center. My first thought was, logically, well, I guess they need more space. Hang around. That's not the case here. Michael says, I'm listening to your podcast as I'm texting. Hope you're not driving, Michael. And I want to know why it was moved from Greenville to Spartanburg. I challenged you. I said email me or text me why, and I would respond. Sherry from Elberton, Georgia. I'd like to know what has to be done to make sure every time a Democrat or rhino gets to be president who doesn't take keeping America first and protecting our border from them changing our border policy every time they get into office. Obama was a yellow-belly president with his foreign policy and all of his other crazy, can't say the word, ideas. Now we are dealing with Grandpa Joe with dementia, who with a swift signature on the first day changed our border policy. How can we change it back and keep it that way permanently? Good question, Sherry. Good question. The answer, unfortunately, is until Congress reins in a president's executive authority, we're not going to be able to. Joe Biden, so many of these regulations are because of executive orders. Joe Biden just undid them. The U.S. Congress needs to limit what a president can do by executive order. That's why we have a legislature. That's why we have a U.S. House and a U.S. Senate, two deliberative bodies. Faye writes, Nikki is saying all the right words on the trail, but if she goes to the White House, her tune will change as her tongue and her actions will be controlled by the big Democrat donors who put her there. You'll see Biden in a dress. Nikki will be puppet number 2, dictators or both. Nikki has the tenacity of the boogeyman. Faye's not a big Nikki fan. It doesn't appear. Bob from Little Rock says, Joey, early voting is underway in South Carolina. The first day of early voting in Arkansas, where I live, is Tuesday. That's today. Says, I'm going to proudly early vote like so many of our state citizens. I remember the old days when my wife and I would walk hand in hand to our local voting site where we were so proud to vote on election day. I remember that, Bob. Now the game has changed. If we're going to win elections, we have to play by the new rules. My hope is that many South Carolina citizens will also early vote. Go South Carolina, Bob from Little Rock. Thank you. And he's right. Early voting started last week. Yesterday they were closed because of the President's Day, but they're open today. So go vote. Go vote. If you think there's going to be something that will keep you from voting on Saturday, early vote. Katrina says, hi, Joey. We went to early vote last week. We did wonder why the town hall event was moved to Greenville. We heard that it was because, you ready? Early voting was across the street. Did Nikki complain? Katrina's right. So for those of you who were wondering, and I tried to respond to a lot of your texts and emails yesterday, here's the story. So Fox News announced that Laura Ingraham would be holding her town hall with Donald Trump at the Spartanburg Auditorium. Now, from the beginning, they were going to limit the number of tickets. I'm told it was going to be less than 2,000, somewhere in the 16, 17, 1,800 number. Laura Ingraham made the announcement last week. Local officials did not even know it was going to happen. She made the announcement. The Fox News network had worked out the deal with the Trump National Campaign Committee. I'm told that even some of the local Trump campaign committee members here did not even know it was going to happen until it was announced on Laura Ingram's show. She put up a website that you could go to, request your ticket. They went very quickly. The next day, it was announced that it was going to be moved to Greenville. Now, again, logical assumption. And I thought, well, they must have filled up the auditorium very quickly and moved to Greenville. Not the case. They learned that, and they learned very quickly, I'm told, that the Spartanburg County offices are right across the street from Spartanburg Auditorium. And guess what's at the Spartanburg County offices? A polling place. It's where the county election office is. You can't have campaign activity within 500 feet of a polling place. So this town hall would have been illegal based on South Carolina's law of being within 500 feet of a polling place. They quickly learned this. Had they consulted with my buddies over at the Spartanburg GOP, like Curtis Smith and those, they would have known this up front. They didn't, so they had to quickly change their venue. So that's the story. That's the truth, just the truth. That's what we deal with here. Our text of encouragement today from Bobby says, good morning, Joey. First of all, prayers for the person who texts our daily encouragement. I enjoy listening to them. Second, I vote for prayer truths. We need more prayer in this nation, and I pray for the revelation revival that is starting to come to us. God bless you, Joey, for spreading the truth. Bobby, thank you for that, Bobby. Well, I reached out. I text, and remember, I don't know the identity of our text of encourager, but I can text. I can respond to their text. So I text. I said, many listeners are asking about you. I've asked all to pray for our, quote, daily encouragement texter. I hope you're healing, because I'd received a message when I had not heard for a few days, and he or she said that they had been in ICU. So I got a response. It says, Mr. Hudson. And if you're listening, you don't have to call me Mr. Hudson. I'm Joey. Says, thank you to you, your family, and all your fantastic listeners. I'm still in the hospital, learning to speak correctly, walk correctly, but I assure you, I will be back. Thanks for everyone's prayers. As God would say, God always gives his best to those who leave the choice with him. God bless, love. What a wonderful message. So I said, I'm so glad to hear from you. Sorry I'm texting late because it was last night when I was texting kind of late. I just happened to think about it. I said, but I've had you on my mind. God bless, and the prayers will continue. I got a quick response. Thank you so much. From your daily encouragement texter. Remember, here's your message for today now. I'm telling you, he or she said, remember, God is great. I will be back. I give you my word. So let's keep our prayers going. Send our prayers for total healing for our daily text of encouragement texter. Thank you for that. Kamala Harris to the rescue. We're told that Vice President Kamala Harris is gathering information on President Joe Biden's reelection campaign in an effort to help him turn things around as the sitting president trails former President Donald Trump in hypothetical matchups all around the country. Sources are telling CNN, and they're reporting that Kamala Harris is panicking. You need a new refrigerator, new washer, dryer, new dishwasher, possibly. That stove, did it quit baking for you? Maybe one of the eyes is out. Are you tired of buying appliances from inexperienced sales staff who have no knowledge of appliances at all? Well, I have the solution for you. With so many different options, brands, features, it's kind of hard to figure that out on your own. So head over to Pickens to Discounted Appliance Warehouse, because you can't afford to make the wrong decision, to buy the wrong appliance. When you go to Discounted Appliance Warehouse, they have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating, nearly perfect reviews on Google, and the team at Discounted Appliance Warehouse, they have the knowledge that you need to make a confident purchase, to purchase the appliance that's best for you and your family. They'll show you around the warehouse, over 11,000 square feet. It's slam-packed with new appliances, and they'll help you find the best solution for you. They have expert installation. They have an award-winning service department. I can attest to that. Johnny was out at my house just a couple weeks ago, helping me out with the little issue I had with the refrigerator. And they have extended warranty, so they're with you well beyond the sale. And they're proud to offer Speed Queen, the only washer and dryers with up to 7 years warranty on parts and labor. Discounted Appliance Warehouse. They're worth a short drive to Pickens, online at dawpickens.com. Joe Biden is trailing Donald Trump in several swing states by as many as 11 points ahead of this fall's election, according to a Redfield and Wilton strategy survey. As some of Biden's top allies voice their concerns over the president's reelection chances, Kamala Harris is talking to staffers to try to, quote, penetrate the bubble of Biden campaign thinking. This according to CNN. They write, the bedwetting complaints are running thin with people, a person who attended a meeting of anxious Democrats who are worried about the campaign. The West Wing and the campaign need to be better. Quote, among concerns of how the Biden campaign is performing, Harris has done well in fielding the criticism, according to CNN, adding that the vice president deserves credit for it. Those who have had conversation with Ms. Harris say that the state of the campaign, that it's shifted their view of the vice president and that she is viewed as a crucial part of the reelection effort now. While Harris's effort isn't seen as her going behind the campaign's back, we're told that she's worried that Biden will lose to the couch rather than Trump. Harris continues to gather information on the campaign. CNN says the vice president is reportedly asking her staff to set up additional meetings so she can get a better feel as to what is going wrong within the reelection efforts. I can tell you, it's pretty simple what's going wrong, isn't it? According to the report, Harris recently conducted a meeting with campaign staff where she pushed them for answers on polling and data that's been coming in about the state of the race. Harris says that as she ends the conversation, according to CNN, by the way, we're going to win. Give him a little pep talk there. Harris reportedly addresses problems within the Biden reelection campaign. She also has duties around the White House, we're told. Just before the end of 2023, she announced that she would be traveling the country in 2024 to promote access for abortion. Of course, you'll remember she was tasked with solving the root causes of the illegal invasion of the southern border. She went to El Salvador, Guatemala, and Honduras. Still no action at the southern border, of course. And they try to downplay her role there. As the Biden administration is scrambling to try to get some semblance of a border under control, the vice president said that her duties start and end with Guatemala, Honduras, and El Salvador, those countries that she went to, according to a report from Axios. As mentioned earlier, early voting underway. There's some questions that you're going to be asked on the ballot, one of which involves party registration in South Carolina. Drew McKissick, chairman of the South Carolina Republican Party, emailed yesterday, fellow Republicans, we're just days away from our presidential preference primary. This Saturday, our party will vote for our preferred candidate for president of the United States. This is the most important function of any political party. As this important day approaches, we have witnessed several outrageous calls from third-party groups encouraging Democrats to participate in our primary. The South Carolina Republican Party has worked tirelessly for the past 7 years to pass legislation to prevent Democrats from voting in our primaries. The party's state executive committee passed a resolution condemning this behavior at our most recent executive committee meeting. South Carolina Republicans have the best track record in the country for picking presidents, McKissick said, and I expect this continue on Saturday. But we can't sit back and allow Democrats to tarnish our reputation. So he says, if you want to keep Democrats from voting in our primaries, vote yes this Saturday on our first advisory ballot question. Send our legislature a message that you support the right to register by political party in South Carolina. And that is one of the questions that's on the ballot that you'll be presented with when you go to vote, whether it's early voting or you go on Saturday. Should we allow, or actually, I guess, should we insist that people register by party in South Carolina? This would stop some of the games that are being played. We've heard a lot about it, that supposedly Democrats are being encouraged to vote for Nikki Haley. We'll see. That's it for today's edition of Just the Truth. Appreciate you joining me in the PhD Weight Loss and Nutrition Studio. To lose weight for the last time, visit myphdweightloss.com. By the way, if you haven't joined our mailing list, you know where to go. JoeyHudson.com. Click on the Connect with Joey button so that you can receive our emails with the most up-to-date news. Also, if you enjoy Just the Truth, share it with a friend or two or three or four. You can just hit the share button, put in their telephone number, and text it to them. And then that way they can follow and they can join our community every day. Also, find me on YouTube. Just search for Joey Hudson. If you have trouble finding it, send me a quick text or an email, and I'll send you a link to it. Appreciate you spending a few minutes of your day with me. Keep your comments coming via the Firmin Ford text line, 864-477-JOEY. Keep your emails coming as well, joey@joeyhudson.com. We're back again tomorrow. Until then, remember, God's in control.